So this is not an easy subject for me to discuss, but it will definitely help and get things off my chest. So some of the things I'm about to disclose, my mom doesn't even know. I didn't want her to feel guilt, so, and I also didn't want to admit to her that I was wrong for leaving to begin with, and that I regretted it deeply. But so my first abusive relationship, which is what I'm going to talk about this video, because damn, it was long enough. Can't put both my abusive relationships. That'd be a fucking movie. But anyway, so I was 17 and he was 27. And I know you're probably thinking, wow, that's a huge age difference. Yeah, well, so was a lot of my friends and my family. And they thought that I was gross for it. But at the time, I didn't care. I thought I was in love. And I thought that since he was older, he'd be wiser and he'd be more mature. But I was definitely wrong about that. And so, I begged my mom for him to stay with us when we, he got kicked out of his place. And so I begged my mom for him to stay with us. And she agreed that if he paid rent, he could stay with us. So that's how all the craziness started, really, is when he was living with us. And it caused a lot of drama. And he was a very paranoid person. He had secrets of his own that slowly over time revealed themselves. He was so paranoid that I was cheating on him that he would set up fake scenarios just so he would have a valid reason to question me and act suspicious. He would call me out, telling me that I was cheating on him. And he literally methodically placed condoms all over the laundry room. He opened a box, spread them around the laundry, and he even went as far to open the corners of some of the condoms. And he didn't even take the condoms out. And the condoms weren't unrolled. You could tell they weren't used. They weren't even taken out of the wrapper. The corners were just ripped off. And they were just methodically placed on the floor of the laundry room. And he used, he obviously did that so that he could have a reason, a valid reason to just accuse me of cheating. Because he didn't have a reason to accuse me. He didn't have a valid reason, so he made one. And that, my friends, is fucking psychotic. I don't know why I didn't see that to begin with. But like I said, I thought I was in love. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt. So, anyway, my mom got tired of all that drama. And she eventually told us that he had to go. But she also said, because I told her, I was like, if he has to go, I'm going with him. And she was like, well, if you want to go, go. So I went. And that was one of the worst mistakes that I could have ever made. So for a while after we got kicked out of my mom's apartment, we were homeless with no place to stay, no car. And we bounced from hotel to hotel. So we would stay at a hotel until we would get kicked out for lack of payment. And we would always have to run out on hotels, and hide our belongings somewhere nearby until we could find a new place to camp out or stumble upon some money for another hotel. And so one night we couldn't find anywhere to sleep except for a condemned, empty old motel that was literally falling apart and the roof was caving in. And we slept under the roof because it was freezing and the roof broke the wind and, it wasn't as cold under the roof. So we slept under it. And I couldn't help but staring up at the concave roof. And I tried to fall asleep, cuddled up next to him. And I was wondering, is this what a man is supposed to be like? Is that really love? Like, and is this worth it? And I was thinking, I hope this is going to be worth it. And at that moment, I kind of wished that the roof would have fallen on me, just so I would have woken up in a hospital in a warm environment with a hot meal and a place to stay, a roof over my head that wasn't freaking broken, you know, and that's sad. So, you learn from your mistakes, and I definitely learned from this one. So anyway, so we would go to McDonald's and we would buy dollar burgers on the occasion that we could panhandle a few bucks or find some money somehow. And so we would live off of a cup of ramen. And, we would get cup of ramen because we only had the hotel microwave to cook it in. So, and if we didn't have utensils, we would just have to use our toothbrushes because we didn't have money for utensils. And if the hotel didn't have utensils, then we would just use our toothbrushes rather than using our hands. Gross, right? Yeah. And so anyway, one day we were at McDonald's and we didn't have a hotel or anywhere to stay that night. So we were at McDonald's and we would order like $1 tea and split a burger a piece. And we would stay there almost all day and we would milk our time there. We would refill our drinks and use the electricity, charge my phone, use the Wi-Fi, contact friends for possible jobs. So I remember one day we met a very nice couple and explained our situation. And they gave us enough money to get a hotel room for the night. And knowing we only had that night, like as soon as we got to that hotel, he started calling all his friends and his ex-bosses trying to borrow money, find work or a place to stay, just anything really. And so this time he found an ex-boss of his that was interested and made an offer. And he would let him work for him. He would pay us up for a week for the hotel. And he wanted to see me first. Like, can you believe the nerve of that guy? Like asking his ex-employees, like, I don't know. I mean, just ask him for that in general. Like, I don't know. But anyway, so, shit, I lost my place. It's going to be messy if I don't read it off the script. Very messy. Anyway, so he agreed to his ex-boss on the phone. He'd be fine with that. Like, he'd be fine with him seeing and sleeping with me if that's what he wanted. So he acted fine about it. And his boss, like when he was on the phone with his boss. But as soon as he got off the phone with him and told me what his ex-boss said, like he was iffy about it and almost seemed like a mental struggle for him. So I told him like whatever he wanted me to do, like whatever decision was, like I was behind him. Like I supported him. And I would do whatever was necessary for us, to have a place. And, if that's what he felt was necessary, and at the moment I wish that I would have, just said, no, that's insane, just called my mom up and been like, hey, I need to talk to you. Can I come over, or something. But I didn't, and, I thought I loved him. So I was going to do whatever it took. But it felt so wrong, So Anyway, he acted very calm and collected when his boss was there. Um, yeah. So then he left the room, left me alone with him, and it was strange. It was strange because I could tell that he liked the fact that I was illegal and a minor, and that irritated me, and it felt wrong, and I felt embarrassed and ashamed, and like I was betraying the one I loved. But now that I think of it, I guess in a way, he betrayed me. He let it happen, and afterward, when he came back, and after his ex boss gave us the money for the hotel, and he was gone for the night. He left. My abusive ex was a mess. He was screaming at me, crying, calling me a whore, telling me he stood by the door and he could hear everything. And then he hated me and he hated himself. And then he tried to choke himself with a long hand towel. And he twisted it up. He sat on the toilet and told me he was going to kill himself and squeezed his neck. And his face got really red. So, I ran up to him and I freaked out. And I tried to rip the towel off of his neck. And like he was trying to pull, and I finally got it off of him when we were both crying and in hysterics. But eventually, he did calm down eventually. But that was a very crazy night, and I blocked out a lot from the rest of that night. But it does stick with me. So anyway, his ex-boss had mentioned that he had an apartment and we could both stay there. And that once that week at the hotel was up, that we could, stay there and he could work with his company, landscaping company, and they would carpool so that he could save money. And he did say the apartment needed work, but I had no idea until we saw it firsthand. And by then it was too late. It was the only place we had to live. So we got there and, there's black mold, like infested in the walls, on the top of the walls, and the bottom of the walls. And for the first 3 days, we had to feverishly clean that mold off of the walls with bleach and then like Kills, which is a chemical that, kills black mold. And there was a sump pump in the middle of the floor, like in a hole in the middle of the floor in the living room. There was a sump pump, which to anyone who doesn't know, a sump pump is like a machine thing that basically just like pumps all of the water. Like you put it in places where it floods and it pumps out all the water. Basically gets to water. It's a drainage system, like a automatic draining system, I guess, because that apartment didn't have proper drainage system. So every time it rained and snowed, it would flood. And we, sometimes we would go to bed, it would be raining, we'd wake up in the morning and it would be flooded. I would put my feet into like a lake. Anything on the floor would be ruined. So, we got to the point where we'd have to start putting things up high, just to avoid that. And, just hoping for the best, just having to deal with it, just waiting around. And that's where the mold came in because, before we were there, I don't think people were there for a while. So all of that accumulated and, no one cleaned up and all that moisture, it caused mold. So, anyway, we had to clean for the first 3 days that we lived there just to get it livable. And even then, I was getting really sick just from living there. Just physically, just, really sick, like sinus infection times 10. And, I had dropped out of school, I didn't have, healthcare. I didn't go to the doctor, nothing, none of that. So anyway, living in that apartment was hell. I was home alone all the time. I didn't have friends over because he didn't want me to have friends. He made it hard to have any interaction with others because he would get paranoid and accuse me of like off the wall shit. All I did was cook and clean, and we were always in need of food. We were limited and we couldn't go to a grocery store. We didn't have a car. So we would walk to a gas station down the street. And that's the only place we could buy food. So, that's basically why we always needed food. And, occasionally our neighbors were nice and they would invite us over for dinner and to play video games. But my ex became very suspicious of like everyone we would go around. So to the point where like if someone would call and ask for him, he would suspect that his friends were calling to talk to me secretly while he's working. And if someone came by and I told him that someone came by looking for him, he would get suspicious that they were coming to see me. And it got to the point where I would just not tell him these things, like out of fear that he would just blow it out of proportion or think things that weren't true. I mean, and he would get on my phone and he would get on my email, my Facebook, and he would look through everything. And for no good reason. Like there was nothing, and I wasn't cheating. And I didn't even have friends. It just made no sense. So anyway, funny thing, his baby mama eventually did come over one time, and she showed me messages that he had sent her from my phone because he took my phone to work with him because we had a house phone. So I'd call him from the house phone and he would call me from cell phone. So apparently he was messaging her from my phone. And, she showed me the messages and he was trying to have sex with her. So, and she didn't want to have sex with him. And, and she came and showed me, and she was like, well, if this was me, I would have wanted someone to show me. So, out of respect, she showed me. So, and so funny enough, I think that's probably where his paranoia stemmed from was his own actions, his guilt, maybe thinking that, I'm like him. I don't know. Anyway, so one night, he did see that his ex-boss had called and he, I hadn't told him about it because he called for him and I hadn't told him about it because I didn't want him to think anything of it. And which is, it ended up being worse when he saw it. Anyway, so, when he confronted me about it, I didn't even know what was going on because he didn't tell me. Basically, all he did was he walked in and, I was taking a shower and he grabbed me by the hair and he dragged me out to the hallway on my ass, by my hair. And he dragged me to the front door and I wouldn't get up off the floor. I was trying to curl up and, he dragged me the whole way because I wouldn't get up, I guess. So he was, he dragged me to the front door and I was dripping wet, completely naked, and he called me a whore and told me to get the fuck out. And, it was a long carpeted hall and I got, really bad carpet burn on my ass from this incident. Of all places, never thought I would have got carpet burn on my ass. But it was there for 2 weeks. It was massive carpet burn. And I had pictures of all this stuff on my digital camera, but he ended up breaking that digital camera before I ever left there. Damn. I wish I would have had all that. That would have been great. But anyway. So, another time, I remember we were laying in the bed and arguing over his accusations of, me fucking a certain neighbor. It was this redheaded neighbor that lived above us. And we didn't even talk to him or hang out with him. I didn't even know his name. So, I defended myself. I was like, this is fucking crazy. I'm not doing this shit. It's insane for you to always accuse me of stuff like this. I'm not giving you a reason to even accuse me or think like that. And I don't know. He got really angry really fast. And I just remember him getting on top of me and choking me. And literally, like, I watched the sides of my vision go fuzzy. Like, and I had no breath left. Like, he almost choked me to unconsciousness. And truly, like, for a second, I thought I was going to die. Like, I didn't know. Like, because, like, it literally felt like I was, like, living off of no breath. Like, my brain would die next. Like, because it didn't feel like there was any air in my lungs, It was crazy, and because you do kind of get those, life flashes before your eyes thing, when you think you're about to die, you do. And, I got that. But, that's not a feeling you're supposed to get from someone you love, You're not supposed to be in fear of your loved one. And you're not supposed to be in fear of telling them the truth, most of all. You should be able to tell them the truth, and it should be the easiest thing for you. And communication is key, but, like, it can't be mistrust. You can't be with someone if there's mistrust. You just can't. I mean, not to that level, not where you're doing paranoid shit like that. Like, anyway, so, all this shit, caused me to spiral into a deep depression. And I was ashamed of myself. And, I gave up everything for what? Like, for what? For this? Like, for nothing. And I could have had a decent education and took college classes for half price in high school. But, I dropped out for this. And I gave up all my friends, my family, a normal life, just to be confined and controlled and verbally abused and physically abused. And I hated myself for being so stupid. And I hated him for luring me in there and for isolating me and giving me false hopes, for lying, cheating, trying to make me feel like I was the one in the wrong. So, I started cutting my wrists and, I was attempting to find some sort of relief. I don't recommend doing it. It was not the right move. Felt right at the time, but it definitely, it might feel good when you're doing it, but it doesn't feel like good afterwards. It hurts. It itches and it hurts and burns. And so don't do that. Find other ways to release. But, that's what I did at the time. I was young, I was 17. So I started doing that. And around that time, my ex's sister, she was in her 20s and she moved in with us and she had an extra room. I mean, we had an extra room and she got kicked out of her place. I don't know why they always got kicked out of places. I don't know. But so anyway, we had an extra room and she came to stay with us. I didn't have a say in it. I didn't want it to happen, but she came anyways. I didn't like her to begin with. She's not a good person. So she brought her boyfriend along, and it happened to be one of my old friends, and his name was Josh. So Josh was a quiet guy. He was clumsy, slightly uneducated. Kind of in like a weird hillbilly type way, funny because of his stupidity. He was a big drinker, but he was very friendly when he drank, when he drunk, or when he was drunk. And, he always seemed to want to make her happy. He always tried to make her laugh. And, it didn't seem like he did anything really wrong enough I mean, no one deserves to be hit, like no matter what anyone does, they don't deserve to be hit. But like all around, this guy wasn't a bad guy. So it just didn't even make sense to me. But, she was abusing him right in front of us. And, it would be like in the living room, they would be yelling, and it would be mainly just her yelling at him, and she would be standing over him. And if he just said one thing to her or said something or anything at all, and then she would just slap the shit out of him. And I couldn't believe my eyes the first few times. Like, I was in shock. I was like, oh shit, like really? Like, was that necessary? But and then it hit me, it ran in the family, it ran in the family. He did it, she did it. I'm sure their dad did it. Or some family, I'm sure their mom or their dad or whoever, But so anyway, it goes both ways. Women and men get abused, And so my time with my abusive ex ended shortly after his sister arrived. And me seeing her abuse her boyfriend really got me angry. Like, it lit a flame inside of me. And I had like seething silent hatred for her. And I couldn't take out my anger on my ex because he was stronger than me. But, if she said one wrong thing to me, I could take my anger out on her. All she had to do was look at me wrong, and I was ready, I'd had enough, because they both deserved it. And, so. Don't smoke cigarettes, kids. They're bad for you. Seriously, though, they're bad for you. Anyway. Back to my story. So anyway, one day she did say something, she did say something wrong, and I flipped out. I was in the bathroom and I locked myself in there, and I was trying to find some release. And, it was right after an emotional argument with my ex. And so his sister was banging on the bathroom door telling me I needed to get out there and talk to her. And I kept telling her I didn't need to say shit to her. And it's none of her fucking concern. So she managed to get the bathroom door open and saw what I was doing. And she flipped out, telling me I was a freak, a psycho, a whore, and I should kill myself. And at that point, I had enough. I had enough. And so I walked straight past her and I went to grab my stuff out of the dresser because I had finally made the choice to leave. And she followed me. And when I turned around, she was right on my heels. She pushed me once. I pushed her back. She pushed me again. And then these next parts are pretty fuzzy because I sort of blacked out like as I was fighting her. I know I tackled her and got her on the ground. Like I remember grabbing her hair and basically I twisted her hands, her hair in my hands. What is it, mollywopped her? I don't even know. Fucking twisted her hair in my hands and punched her in the face over and over. And, I don't know. I wasn't really thinking about it when I was doing it. I was just getting my anger out, and it's not like me, it was the only real fight I've ever been in, I don't fight. So I'm not a fighter. That's not my thing, so for me to be like that was different. And I mean, I guess I just don't let people walk over me. Like, no matter what, like, I was tired of people walking all over me, that's what it just boils down to. Like, You should never let anyone walk all over you, tell you what to do, and just define who you are and control your life, because then you can't be you. So, basically, I remember my ex was pulling me off of her, and he was saying, good job. And I'm like, what do you mean, good job? Like, why would you even tell me that? Like, good job in a fight against your sister. Like, okay, good job. But then he whispered it in my ear so that she couldn't hear. Like, and how shiesty is that? Good job. So anyway, she ran away and she was like, I'm going to call the cops on you, crazy bitch. And so, I was like, okay. So I put my cowboy boots on, no socks, and my velvet lime green pajama pants, my t-shirt, my black t-shirt. And I ran out in the woods in 80 to 90 degree weather. And I ran from life. I ran from them. I ran from everything. I ran from my feelings. And I just ran for 10 to 20 minutes. And I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know. So, I ended up behind a storage shed facility. And there was like a perimeter fence. And, there's a hill behind it. And, there was like this weird looking stream ahead of that. So, I sat on top of the hill and I just looked, and I thought to myself, I'm like, wait, like, literally, where am I going in life? And where am I getting by being here? Like, I'm getting nowhere. And, I'm going to be a homeless teen. And, if I keep running, where am I going to go? What's the point? So I ended up giving myself in, and I heard the cop voices nearby, and I walked towards them, because they were taking forever to find me. Like, I don't know what they were doing. So finally I got tired of waiting for them to find me. So then I walked towards them and found them by just listening to their voices. It's sad. But anyway, so, I turned myself in, they cuffed me and, explained the situation, and they ended up not charging me. They just got me for a psych evaluation, and then told me that legally I had to go home. I had to go to my mom's because I wasn't old enough to be with him, and I couldn't go back because of the events. So, my mom showed up to the police station, and she was furious. She was furious. I mean, she had a right to be, but she was very furious with me. She was mad when she walked through those doors. And she took me home. And, I finally, I had a home again, a warm home with food and family that loves me, a mother that loves me unconditionally, no matter what, really loves me and won't let me live in those conditions, So I finally had what I wanted again, and what I never should have left to begin with. I regret it to this day, but you can't change the things that have happened in the past. All I can do is just learn from them and pass them on. And, so that's what I'm trying to pass these situations down, anyone listening that, can, that has any relevance to them. You don't have to put up with it. The message I want to give to anyone out there listening, like, that can relate to this story is, you don't have to put up with abuse. A real love doesn't consist of any abuse. True love does exist. And I know this for a fact. And true love doesn't include making your lover feel bad about themselves or playing mind games. It doesn't include lies, deception, cheating, accusations. Physical or emotional abuse is not acceptable. And it only gets worse. It does not get better. So do not ever think that someone's abuse will get better, that they will stop, that they're just mentally ill. It gets worse. Once they start hurting you physically, it gets worse. It doesn't get better. And abusers do not change. Do not think that. I mean, and everyone deserves to be with someone that treat them the way that they want to be treated and that they can treat them in return. And you deserve what you give out, and you deserve happiness. And do not accept anything less than happiness, because it's never worth your time. It's not worth losing precious time and things in life that you can't get back. So take that chance to find yourself, before you find a spot in your heart for someone else, and find yourself so that you can know your self-worth. And, like I said in the beginning, this wasn't my first abusive relationship. I've had two with my, the second one was with my abusive relationship with my baby's father. A whole nother story, long, long story. Don't even know if I'm going to post a video about that. We'll see. I don't know. But, if you've gotten this far in the video, I just want to thank you for watching this. And please feel free to like, subscribe, comment. Or, if you're feeling salty, just give me a thumbs down, At least I know you care. So anyway, may the force be with you.